Here we go. Here we go. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy Monday. Happy Labor Day weekend, America. Happy Labor Day. Thank you all for joining us today on this special Labor Day show. It's your saltwater guide with another great seminar for you. Today, we're going to be talking about current and tide. But today is Baja Jerky Monday. We always start the show off with Baja Jerky, something about Baja Jerky. And you got to check out these street taco beef sticks that we have. We have these street taco beef sticks. We got seasoning and we got dried mangoes, gang. You can check all this stuff out at bajajerky.com with hundreds and hundreds of different, or excuse me, not hundred, with different flavors, with hundreds of unbelievable taste bud explosions when you eat this stuff. It's absolutely incredible. And this dried mango is good as any dried mango I've ever had, maybe better. And I live down here in the land of dried mango. This dried mango is insane. I love it. My monkey loves it. These street taco beef sticks, they taste just like a street taco from down here in Cabo San Lucas. You wouldn't even believe it when you taste these. And then you got this seasoning, this chili limon. You know, you like to sprinkle it on top of your beer. You like to have it, sprinkle it on your ham when you're going to do your shot of tequila. Also, this stuff's great for marinating your steaks, getting your beef ready to eat. So check out all the different products at bajajerky.com. Go to bajajerky.com, put in the code YSWG and the number 30. You'll save 30% on all the different products they have over there at Baja Jerky. And so let's get going. We're going to talk about current and tide today because this is a question I'm getting asked an awful lot over on my website. What's my website? YourSaltwaterGuide.com. You can check it out with over 450 how-to videos. You can go over there and check all that out for 14-day free trial. And if you decide that you want to get a little bit deeper into this whole fishing thing and you'd like to know where they're biting at, and you'd like to know all the spots, you can buy that little upgrade. It's not that big of a deal to purchase the upgrade. You get the upgrade and you'll be able to dial yourself in a little bit more on what's going on out in the water. But today we're going to talk about current and tide. And we have a series on the website both about current and tide. Something you have to understand, gang, is tide isn't current and current isn't tide. We can predict the tides. That's been going on since the beginning of time. We can predict the tides by the movement of the moon, and it's pretty accurate. You can go find a tide book, or you can look up the tide online, or most of us with the new GPS systems all have the tide right on our GPS. Tide and current are two totally different things. Tide is going to affect the offshore fishery much more, not the Dorado, because that's not a time of day thing. The Dorado is basically when you find the piece of floating seaweed or when you find the moving school of Dorado. But as far as the bluefin, the marlin, the yellowfin, all that stuff seems to erupt on the surface when the tide goes slack. That means the tide's not coming in and it's not going out. It's slack tide. It's when the tide's gone all the way to the top or gone all the way to the bottom and it stops moving for a few minutes. That's slack tide. Why is slack tide when the fish seem to want to bite? Because all the fish in the ocean, I don't care if they're 200 pounds, 600 pounds, or 6 ounces. None of them know that they're big. They're all fish. They're dumb. They don't understand that they grew up. So that's why they swim in schools, not largemouth bass. We're not talking about those. So calm down over there. We're talking about oceanic pelagic fish. They swim in big schools. Marlin swim in schools. All this stuff swims in schools. Just because you don't see it on the surface doesn't mean it's not swimming in a school. But why do they swim in schools? Because they've always thought that they always think they're small, and they're afraid that if they don't swim together in a big group, they're going to get eaten. Why do I tell you that? Because here's what's going on. When the tide goes slack, the plankton that the fish feed on when they're little floats to the top. The photoplankton, I'm sorry, I'm going to get kind of technical here. The photoplankton floats on the surface when the tide stops moving. The zooplankton comes up and feeds on the photoplankton that's floating on the surface. The bait fish comes up and feeds on the zooplankton that's feeding on the photoplankton. What comes behind that? Your predatory fish, your bluefin, your yellowfin. your yellowtail, your marlin, your swordfish, all that stuff, because it all remembers when it was little babies that's when all the food floated to the surface. So that's why everything floats when the tide goes slack. And it doesn't matter if it's slack high or slack low. That's why that sea bass has a tendency to, because it swims in giant schools around open ocean until it decides to settle into the islands or the high spots or the banks or wherever it decides to swim. That's why it's so based on tide. Tide's a huge thing to base your day around when you're going offshore. Hey, Justin. Tide is a huge thing to base your day around. When you're going out bluefin fishing, you want to fish through that tide. You want to be in the zone, like where Justin tells you to go or I tell you to go. You want to be in that zone during the slack tide, because all the fish are going to float. And I just explained to you why they float. If you're late to the show, watch it again. If you still don't got it, go to my website, yoursaltwaterguide.com. I held a whole series of videos about tide. Now, a lot of people say, okay, well, the tide says it's going to be da-da-da-da, so that should make the current go. Nope, two totally different things. If you're talking to someone right now and they can tell you that they can predict the tide, you need to run away from them, because they're liars. No one can predict tide. No one can predict current. We're talking about current. No one can predict current, all right? Nobody. So you got to think, if someone's telling you they can predict the current, they're probably lying. So you want to get as far away from that liar as you possibly can. Current can be totally different. Let's just use Catalina, for example, so some of you understand. Catalina, let's say Avalon Harbor, right outside of Avalon Harbor, the current's going from LA, the water's moving from LA to San Diego. That's a downhill current. Okay, so that downhill current, now you can go up to Long Point, which is not that far from Avalon, maybe 4 miles from Avalon, 5 miles. You can go to Long Point, and that current can be going uphill right there. Everybody can predict tide. I misspoke, but good thing. I'm so glad you're listening. But yes, everybody can predict tide. I misspoke, and I'm glad, and I corrected myself, but good on you for listening. It's always good to listen. That way you learn stuff if you listen. No one can predict current. Current is not tide, and tide is not current. And what I was telling you about Avalon and then moving up to Long Point, just in a 4-mile stretch, the current can be going totally the opposite way, and it has no bearing on the tide. The tide and the current are totally different things. We cannot predict current, but we can learn how to observe the current. And when we find the current moving in a certain direction, if we're members of Your Saltwater Guide or some other website, or somebody wrote a book about it, and you learn that if you go to Long Point and the wind's blowing out of the southeast and the current is going uphill, that means it's going from San Diego to LA, the water movement, the current, then you know you're going to get bit well, because on Dave's Hotspots videos, it talks about that's one of the best spots for uphill current. There's not a lot of places at Catalina that fish good on an uphill, but we tell you exactly which ones they are. And current is super important, because I don't know if you've ever fished in a river or a stream, but the easiest part to fish is where the water's not moving, but there's no fish in that. This is what happens when the current starts to flow at the island or on the coast or wherever it starts to flow at. As soon as the current starts to flow, the fish know to get out into their feeding stations, because they know food's going to come washing by. If there's no current, they don't have that prey density switch didn't go off in their mind. They're not into the feeding mode. Now they're into the spawning mode, the cruising around mode, the looking for current mode. They're cruising. All of a sudden they get to an area where the current's flowing. Now they're going to start feeding, because they know food's going to come wash them by. A lot of the bites along at the island and along the coast are all centered on current. We're not talking about the offshore bite. We already talked about that. That's based around tide. But at the islands It's all about current. You're not going to catch that good scores on the yellowtail, the calico bass, the barracuda, if there isn't any current. If there's not any current, you're not going to find anything. How do we read the current when we get to a spot? Well, if there's kelp, you can look at the way that the kelp fronds are laying. If they're coming up off the bottom and laying towards San Diego, we know that's a downhill current. If they're coming up of the bottom and pointed towards LA, we know that's an uphill current. But if there's no current, if there's no sign, if there's no buoy in the water, if there's no kelp, then we have to drop our anchor. And then we'll sit there for 10 minutes and see if there's any current. Right away, you'll know if there's current when you drop your line in the water. If the line goes flowing off the back of the boat, you know there's current. If you drop your line off the back of the boat and it stays right next to the boat, then we know there's no current. If there's no current, there's a pretty good chance you're not going to catch anything. A lot of times the sport boats will drive up to the edge of a spot where there's some kelp or maybe some lobster traps or some type of buoy in the water, and they can see right away if there's no current. And that's why they go, hey, gang, we're not going to stop here. We're going to keep moving. And I hear people go, oh, my God, I wish the captain would just stop. I just want to fish. I ran sport boats for years, and I know that's not what you want to do. The baloney, you don't want to fish. You want to catch. When I go fishing, when my wife goes fishing, when Kelly goes fishing, when any of my friends go fishing, they go fishing because they want to catch. That's why people are on my website, because they want to catch. And so when you're on a sport boat and you go to a spot and there's no current and the captain goes, we're not going to stop here, gang. We're going to keep cruising up the island looking for current. It matters, gang, more than anything. And you can be in a wide open bite and all of a sudden they stop biting. It's because the current stopped flowing. I'll guarantee you, if you pay attention, you'll notice that as soon as the current stopped, the fish stopped biting. It's super important to understand how to read that. And that goes in, you can go look at my website once again, yoursaltwaterguide.com, and look at conditions. There's a whole series of videos about conditions, and current is a huge condition that you have to be able to read. You have to understand current, and you have to understand what it does to the fish so that you can be more proficient when you go out fishing on your boat. It's all about reading the conditions and understanding how the current changes the way the fish act. And it does. It changes it dramatically. And I don't really understand why people want to jump on my post and be all negative about what I'm talking about, gang. This is what I've done for 48 years for a living. So relax. I'm just telling you the honest to God truth. It might not be the truth you want to hear, but it is the truth, and it is gospel, and it is what it is. Now, if you caught fish on a spot when there wasn't any current, great, congratulations. But I bet you if you paid attention, you would have noticed that there was current, but you didn't even know what current was. Because if you're saying you caught fish when there wasn't any current, it's because you don't know what current is and you don't know how to read it. So that's okay, though. You can post that. I don't care. It really doesn't matter to me. I love the views, and I need your views, and I want you to post all the potato head stuff that you post. Also, over on Facebook, gang, remember what I told you last month? Mark Zuckerberg's matching all of you. Every time you leave stars on any of my reels or any of my videos or any of my live shows, Mark Zuckerberg's going to match you star for star. So if you're enjoying my entertainment and you're enjoying my shows, leave some stars, sprinkle them across some of my videos. They're very inexpensive. They're very easy to purchase, and you can leave them on all my videos as like a tip. And then Mark Zuckerberg's going to double that. So imagine that. This is your first time in your life you have an opportunity to get into one of the richest men in the world's pockets. And you can help Mark Zuckerberg because we're going to try to help change his tax bracket by giving me stars so that we can get some of his money out of his pocket. So go on any of my videos and check it out. I'm just telling you, he's matching. He's matching every star you give me. He's matching it. That's a big deal. That's a pretty cool thing. So give me some stars, please. Sprinkle some stars so I can feed my monkey and I can feed my beautiful wife, and maybe I can have a bag of this jerky one day. I can open it up and eat it if you give me enough stars. Don't forget BajaJerky.com, gang. I hope this current and tide thing helps you a little bit to understand fully what's going on out there with the fish. Remember, I fished for a living for 48 years, taking people fishing. I've learned a little bit of stuff in that 48 years. Believe me, I will never, ever say I know more about it than you do. I know you know more than I do. I know that for a fact because you're more than willing to let us know on a daily basis on all your beautifully negative comments. But I'm not the reason why you're so angry. But go ahead and leave those comments because I enjoy reading them, and so does everybody else. Go to BajaJerky.com. Put in the code YSWG. Order some of this bitchin' product. You won't even believe how good it is. Go over there and order some of that. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed our show. We'll be with you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to talk more about anchoring because this tuna Dorado thing is not the most important thing in the world. We have to learn how to fish for the fish that live in Southern California year round. I know it's fun to catch Dorado, but they're going to swim away one day, and we're going to need to know how to fish. So tomorrow will be all about anchoring and how to get your anchor back when it's stuck on the bottom. We'll go delve deep into that for the people that don't go on my website. But if you want to get more into how this whole thing works, go to my website. Also, listen, share my video across all social media. If you go out and catch some fish and you want to give me your pictures, I will post them across all my social media. I will share them with all of my followers. We get millions of views a week. I will share. I will drive people to your social media platform. I promise. All you have to do is send me your pictures at yoursaltwaterguide@yahoo.com. I'll share your pictures. I will help you. And make sure whenever you leave a post about Your Saltwater Guide, you put www.yoursaltwaterguide.com on every post. That way my SEO guy can follow it. And then whoever shares the most post, www.yoursaltwaterguide.com, this month, we're giving away $1,000 US. I'm going to Venmo it straight to your account. You can tell everybody. But you got to send me your stuff. And if you're leaving a post on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or YouTube or anywhere, you got to put in www.yoursaltwaterguide.com so we can track it, so we can get you the $1,000. I want to give you the 1,000. I'm going to give it to somebody. All right. And don't forget, we're on Spotify and oh, what else? I'm on Spotify, and I'm also on one other podcast, but I can't remember. I'll tell you tomorrow when I remember. See you later. I got guys working up in my attic. We got a big water leak, and we got a big storm coming tomorrow. So I'm focused on what they're saying upstairs there. I'm sorry. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day.